If you stand on the westernmost edge of the Isle of Lewis and look out into the Atlantic, you will see nothing but black water. But 20 miles out, rising out of the sea like a jagged tooth, sits a cluster of rocks called the Flannan Isles. No one lives there. No one ever has. The ancient Celts called them the Seven Hunters, and the local fishermen believed the islands were cursed by something old, something that didn't like the presence of men. Yet, in December of 1900, 3 men were sitting on that rock, living inside a tower of stone and glass, keeping a light burning for the passing ship. On the night of December 15th, a steamship named the Archtor ploughed through a massive storm nearby. As the captain looked out into the blinding dark toward the Flannan light, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. The light was dead. The island was completely pitch black. It took 10 days for a relief ship, the Hesperus, to reach the island. Bad weather kept them back. 10 days where the Atlantic Ocean kept a dark secret, all to itself. When the ship finally docked on Boxing Day, the silence was unnatural. No flag was flying on the flagpole, no supply boxes were waiting on the landing. A man named Joseph Moore stepped onto the stone stairs alone. He called out into the fog. Nothing answered him but the wind. He walked up to the lighthouse door. It was unlocked. He pushed it open, and the cold air from inside smelled of dampness and rot. On the kitchen table sat a meal of salted mutton and potatoes, untouched. A chair had been knocked backward onto the floor, as if someone had stood up in a violent hurry. The fire in the hearth was dead, cold, for days. But it was the oilskin coats that made Moore's hands shake. 2 of the heavy winter coats were missing from their pegs. One coat, belonging to the youngest keeper, Donald MacArthur, was still hanging there. In a brutal Scottish winter, no lighthouse keeper would ever step outside into a storm without his coat, unless he didn't have time to put it on. The superintendent of the lighthouse board, Robert Muirhead, arrived hours later to investigate. He went down to the western landing, the side of the island facing the raw, destructive fury of the Atlantic. What he found there defies explanation. A supply box, bolted down into solid concrete 20 feet above sea level, had been ripped from its moorings and smashed to pieces. The heavy iron railings lining the stone steps weren't just broken, they were twisted and bent out of shape, like wire in a man's hand. The official report would later state that an enormous, unprecedented wave, a rogue wave, must have swept up the cliff and taken the 3 men all at once. It was a clean, logical answer for the public. It satisfied the newspapers, but it didn't match the logs. See, the logbook was found on the desk. The entries were written by the principal keeper, James Ducat, and they do not describe a sudden wave. They describe a slow descent into madness. On December 12th, Ducat wrote, "Gale north by northwest, sea lashed to fury, never seen such a storm." He then added, "James Ducat is highly irritable. Donald MacArthur is crying." MacArthur was a veteran sailor, a hardened, gritty Scotsman who had survived a dozen storms at sea. Why was he crying inside a reinforced stone tower? On December 13th, the log read, "The storm continues to rage. We can do nothing but pray." But here is the terrifying truth that the authorities tried to hide. On December 12th and December 13th, the official logs of every weather station along the Scottish coast recorded clear skies and calm seas. There was no storm. The weather was perfectly fine. The storm was only happening to them. The final entry was written at 1 p.m. on December 15th. It simply reads, "Storm ended, sea calm, God is over all." If the storm ended at 1 p.m, why was the lighthouse dark by midnight? Where did they go when the sea was calm?